Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of the James Zadrogan 9/11 Health and Compensation Act. On September 11, 2001, Al-Qaeda orchestrated the deadliest terrorist attack in American history, killing almost 3,000 people and wounding thousands more. The attacks created an environmental nightmare as hundreds of tons of every contaminant known to man and woman came into the streets and the canyons of Manhattan and Brooklyn. And you can see pictures of this in front of us. Into this toxic crowd ran firefighters and police and other first responders. First responders came from all 50 states to aid in the rescue and cleanup of the subsequent days. The Environmental Protection Administration, the EPA, despite ample evidence to the contrary, kept falsely proclaiming that the air was safe to breathe. It wasn't. The terrorists caused environmental catastrophe, but the federal government compounded the damage by telling people the environment was safe when it wasn't, and now thousands of people are sick and in need of special care. We have a moral obligation to treat those who became ill, and that's what this bill is all about. For 8 years, Representative Maloney and I, supported on a bipartisan basis by the New York delegation and others, have worked to bring this bill to the floor. Now it is finally time to pass it. Time and again, as we move this bill through the legislative process, we have adjusted it, reduced its size and scope, limited its cost, and made concessions to broaden the coalition and lower the cost to the taxpayers. We worked with our colleagues on the other side of the aisle to reopen the Victims' Compensation Fund in a responsible way in order to protect contractors from liability so they would not find they sacrificed their businesses to serve their country. We even agreed to cap attorneys' fees. On the Victim Compensation Fund, this House, indeed this Congress, passed the Victims' Compensation Fund almost unanimously a week or two after 9/11. Unfortunately, people who should have been compensated by that fund could not be because their sicknesses did not become evident until after the fund closed. Had we known that they would become ill, we certainly would have included them unanimously. That's why Ken Feinberg, testifying before the Judiciary Committee, urged us to reopen the fund, which is one half of this bill. Feinberg said in March of last year, quote, "It is truly ironic that many of these very individuals who have filed lawsuits seeking compensation are the same type of individuals who received payment from the 9/11 fund. Had these individuals manifested a physical injury before the 9/11 fund expired, they too would have received compensation without litigating." He went on to say, reenacting the law establishing the federal September 11th Victim Compensation Fund for an additional period of years in order to provide the same public compensation to eligible physical injury claimants could be justified on grounds of basic fairness. Now is our chance to right that wrong and to provide that basic fairness of which he speaks. I know that some members are concerned about the cost of providing the Victims' Compensation Fund assistance and the health care for the survivors and first responders. Let me emphasize this bill is fiscally responsible and balances the needs of our 9/11 heroes with fiscal constraints. It is completely paid for. We have achieved this by closing a tax loophole which allows foreign companies to evade U.S. taxes. Second, we have capped the funding level, capped the number of people who can participate, and capped the number of years the program can continue. We have consistently worked to reduce its costs, and in the month of July alone, we brought the cost of this bill down an additional $3 billion. Now let me appeal to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. I understand that some may have a problem with the offset, even though it is not aimed at U.S. companies and is simply designed to improve withholding of taxes that are legally due. I understand. But I have to ask this. Just consider for a moment what we are talking about. Balance that tax break against the needs of our 9/11 heroes, needs that are so great, so raw, and so obvious. And let our moral obligation to the heroes of 9/11, our obligation, as Lincoln said, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, prevail. Let us do the honorable thing and vote for this bill. Mr. Speaker, the choice is simple. I will be voting today for the firefighters, for the police, for the first responders, for the survivors of the attacks. I urge every member of the House to do the same. And I want to thank Congresswoman Maloney, Congressman King, the New York delegation, the Speaker, the Majority Leader, the Chairman of the various committees, Subcommittee Chairs Pallone and Lofgren, and all the organizations like the State AFL-CIO from New York, the International Association of Firefighters, and the National Association of Police Organizations for their invaluable support for this bill. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, do the right thing, do the moral thing, do the only moral thing. Vote for this bill. I yield back. I reserve the balance of the time.
Gentleman yields back.